Welcome to Ladybird Readers. If you have enjoyed looking and listening to my books, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thank you. Disney's Pocahontas, first published in 1995, a Ladybird book. Disney's Pocahontas. The English sailing ship, the Susan Constant, was heading towards the New World, America. The leader of the expedition, Governor John Ratcliffe, stood on the deck, holding his pampered pug dog, Percy. "There's gold in the New World," Ratcliffe said to himself, "and soon it will be mine." Nearby stood the brave captain, John Smith. He had been on many exciting voyages before and was looking forward to the start of a new adventure. Meanwhile, high on the cliff in the New World stood a young Indian girl called Pocahontas, meaning little mischief. As always, Meeko, an inquisitive raccoon, and Flit, a tiny hummingbird, were nearby. "Hurry! Your father is waiting," called Pocahontas' friend Nakoma from her canoe in the river below. Pocahontas dived into the deep blue water, and the two friends paddled homewards. Back at the Indian village, Pocahontas' father, Chief Powhatan, had some wonderful news for his daughter. "The brave warrior Kocoum has asked for your hand in marriage," he said. "I will give you the necklace your mother wore at our wedding, so that you may wear it at yours." Pocahontas wanted to obey her father's wishes, but Kocoum was so serious. She decided to go to the enchanted glade where she could talk to the ancient tree spirit, Grandmother Willow. Pocahontas told Grandmother Willow about Kocoum, and she also told the wise spirit about a strange dream she kept having, about a spinning arrow. "The arrow is pointing you down your path," said Grandmother Willow. "Listen to the spirits of the earth, the water, and the sky, and they will guide you." Just then, Pocahontas felt the wind blowing through her hair. She climbed high into Grandmother Willow's branches to hear what it was telling her. As she looked out to sea, Pocahontas saw what seemed to be strange clouds in the distance. They were the sails of a ship. Pocahontas leapt down and ran over to the rocky ledge to get a closer look. She saw that the ship had dropped anchor and that the men were coming ashore. One was tall and handsome. He was heading straight towards her. It was John Smith. As Pocahontas watched, the stranger climbed onto the rocky ledge and looked out across the beautiful landscape. Before Pocahontas could stop, Meeko, he had scampered over to meet the stranger. "Hello, little fellow," Smith said kindly, handing a biscuit to the raccoon. Just then, someone called Smith's name, and he climbed down from the ledge. Pocahontas was left wondering about the mysterious stranger. She decided to follow him to find out more. Later that day, as Smith explored the New World, he came to a sparkling waterfall. On the other side of the cascading water, he saw a young Indian girl, Pocahontas. For a long moment, neither he nor Pocahontas moved. They stared at each other and knew they were falling in love. That afternoon, Pocahontas taught Smith a few words of her language. Smith had thought the Indians would be savages. Meeting Pocahontas changed his mind. He learnt that her people loved the land and they lived in harmony with it. While they talked, Meeko nuzzled through Smith's bag looking for another biscuit. Instead, he found Smith's compass, which he carried off to a nearby tree. He would find a hiding place for this little treasure. Meanwhile, Governor Radcliffe had ordered the men to begin digging for gold. "It's got to be somewhere," he roared as the settlers ripped up trees and dug up the ground. Cucoam and another warrior, Namantak, were hiding in some nearby bushes. They watched in horror as their land was torn apart. When the settlers discovered them there, a fierce fight broke out, and Namantak was badly wounded. Terrified, Cucoam carried his friend back to the village. Later, when Pocahontas returned to the village, she found that her people were preparing for battle with the settlers. Their land was being destroyed by these invaders, and now Namantak had been wounded. They had to be stopped. "Please," Pocahontas begged her father, "try talking to the settlers instead of fighting them." "They do not want to talk," Chief Powhatan replied sternly. At the same moment, Smith was trying to convince Ratcliffe not to fight the Indians, but Ratcliffe was only interested in finding gold. "This is my land now," he cried, "and the Indians must be killed in order to get to the gold." That night, Pocahontas and Smith met in an enchanted glade where she begged him to talk to her father. It was the only way to prevent a terrible battle. When Smith agreed, Pocahontas was delighted, and the two of them kissed. But they didn't realize that they were not alone. Cucoam had followed Pocahontas, and Thomas, a young settler, had followed Smith. Suddenly, Cucoam sprang from the bushes. Thomas, realizing the warrior was about to attack Smith, fired his gun. As Cucoam fell, he pulled Pontus's necklace from her neck, and in an instant he lay dead. Indian war cries sounded in the distance. "You must go, Thomas," Smith cried. The frightened young settler fled back to his camp. Moments later, Indian warriors arrived and captured Smith. They took him and Cucoam's body back to their village. Chief Powhatan believed that Smith was responsible for Cucoam's death and ordered that Smith be killed at sunrise. Later, Pocahontas managed to sneak into the hut where Smith was being held prisoner. "I am so sorry," she wept. "If we had never met, none of this would have happened. But I can't leave you now." "You never will," Smith assured her. "No matter what happens to me, I will always be with you, in my heart, forever." Heartbroken, Pocahontas went to see Grandmother Willow. Suddenly, Miko handed Pocahontas Smith's compass, which he had recovered from its hiding place. As Pocahontas gazed at the needle of the compass, she felt her heart leap. Now she understood. This was the spinning arrow from her dream. Pocahontas knew what she must do. At the Indian village, Chief Powhatan held his club above Smith's head. The settlers, led by Ratcliffe, were approaching. "Stop!" cried Pocahontas, racing forward and throwing herself across Smith's body to protect him. "If you kill him, you will have to kill me too." "Look where hatred has brought us," she said. Chief Powhatan suddenly realized his daughter was speaking the truth and ordered Smith's release. As the Indians lowered their weapons, Ratcliffe saw his chance. "Fire!" he cried. But the settlers were tired of his greed and his cruelty, and they also lowered their weapons. Enraged, Ratcliffe grabbed a gun, aimed it at Chief Powhatan, and fired. Smith bravely flung himself in front of the chief, and the bullet hit him instead. the angry settlers surrounded Ratcliffe. They bound him in chains and marched him back to the Susan Constant. A few days later, the Susan Constant was ready to set sail. The wounded Smith lay on a stretcher while Pocahontas knelt beside him. She was wearing her mother's necklace that Percy and Miko had found in the wood. Smith had to return to England if he was to survive. "I can't leave you here," he said. "You never will," Pocahontas replied, reminding him of his own words. "I will always be with you, in my heart, forever." Pocahontas and John Smith had shown that different people could live together in peace, but she knew that she must stay to try and keep this newfound friendship and understanding alive. At last, Pocahontas had found her one true